Miami pulled off the surprising Game 1 win, but faced the challenge of having to keep that momentum going without Tyler Herro. Can the Heat find a way to win without Herro? Plus, the Heat win the coin flip for the upcoming NBA draft, and NBA circles are buzzing about Draymond Green and the stomp heard around the Bay. We break it all down in today's Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat. I'm Wes Goldberg here with David Ramil. However you might be tuning in on YouTube, Odyssey, or your favorite podcast app, thanks so much for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Tyler Herro is going to be out 4 to 6 weeks with a broken right hand, so not just done for this series, but done for the playoffs if the Heat are somehow able to beat the Bucks and advance. A lot of ripple effects of this injury, David. We're going to get into all of them, including who the Heat should start in Tyler's place. But I think the more pressing thing to consider first is what the Heat are losing in Tyler Herro, and if they have a chance to win this series without Tyler Herro. Because I know most of the attention nationally is on Giannis and the lower back injury. He seems optimistic that he's going to be back for game 2. And I understand it's Giannis, MVP guy, superstar. That's where most of the national attention should be. And I get that. But the Heat are actually losing one of their best players. That much, like, we knew that immediately as soon as it was revealed to be a broken right hand. So a 20-point per game score, one of the better playmakers, passers, pick and roll guys. They were hoping to go into these playoffs healthy, and they did. And then lost one of their best players in this sort of freak diving for a loose ball play injury. And David, I'm going to ask you sort of a broad question. How big of a loss is this? And can the Heat win the series without Tyler Herro?
It's huge. And yes, they can. I think their chances of winning the series don't necessarily depend on Tyler and his production, because I think they can get it from a variety of sources. And it's not, for the Heat to win, we talked about this before the series even began. Miami would have to play near perfect basketball. Jimmy Butler alluded to that following the win over Chicago in the play-in, just to get to this point in the first place, that they'd have to be able to play perfectly. They caught a break with the Giannis injury, and they were able to take advantage of that. Similarly, they have to continue to extend that sense of urgency over however long this series lasts. Every game is a new game, and they can't afford to take their foot off the gas, something, unfortunately, that they've done throughout the regular season. Hopefully, the understanding now in that locker room is that there is a chance for them to win, because they did get that game one victory, and they have to continue to build on that. They have to continue to build off of that and continue to show the trends in the right direction in terms of their defense, their shooting, making the right play, making giving the total and complete effort that will secure every win, because it's going to be a new battle every time. We've seen this over the course of Jimmy Butler's tenure with Miami. It seems like every game takes on an identity of its own within the context of each series, but you have to continue to just keep going. You just have to find a way to find a way to win. And I think they can. Their chances, again, are slim. Like, we can't deny that. Milwaukee's the better team.
Yeah.
Milwaukee's deep. They have talent. Giannis is probably going to be there for game 3. Game 2, excuse me. And despite that, if Miami plays as well as they did in game 1, they still have a chance, I think, of coming away with a 2-0 lead in the series, as unlikely as that might be.
You go into Milwaukee and you win the first game. You've now flipped home court advantage to a certain degree, even though I think that saying is a little overstated. But I do think that gives you, as a team, confidence, right? You kind of like you kind of got away with one, right? You kind of went in there. Giannis got hurt. He left after 11 minutes. You shot 60% from three-point range. I'm not dismissing the win, right? Because that's not what you were saying. Like, every game kind of takes on a different identity during the Jimmy Butler era. I don't think that that's unique to the Miami Heat. I think that's something that just happens in the playoffs for every team, for the most part. Like, these games, just because you shot 60%, for instance, in one game, does not mean you're going to be a good three-point shooting team in the next game. It's sort of like the play-in tournament, where the variance is so wild. It's not as conclusive because instead of a 1-game win or go home type situation, it's a 7-game series. But like each game does have its own sort of characteristics and traits and storylines. And in the first game, the storyline was the injuries to Tyler Herro and to Giannis, and for Miami, the 3-point shooting, and for Milwaukee, just sort of not playing all that well, right? I went back and watched the film. Like, they were not closing out on a lot of those threes. It wasn't just scheme stuff with their drop defense. It was like Bobby Portis and Jay Crowder forgetting that players sometimes went beyond the 3-point line and just ignoring them. And I think they're going to correct those things. The Bucks, they're gonna play better. They're one of the top 5 defenses in the league for a reason, and it's not just because of Giannis. So Giannis will be back. Those closeouts will be easier. All those things will be easier for Milwaukee. We'll see what Giannis looks like when he does come back, right? Because it's not just like black and white. Is he back or is he not back? He could be back, but kind of hampered by the injury. Is he going to be able to move in that same way? That look like we saw how much pain he was in when he took that fall. Like, that is not an easy injury to come back from. Sometimes stuff just hurts. And I think we forget that about NBA players sometimes. Just because you're available doesn't mean that you're completely 100%. So
happened to Jimmy. Remember, he missed time when he fell like that. He fell on his tailbone, and then he tried playing through it, fell again, and he wound up missing more time as a result.
I covered it was the same injury that Steph had a couple of years ago when I was covering them. He missed almost 2 months. Like, that could be tough depending on what happens, and if you fracture something. That's a long, and like I said, extremely painful. So even if Giannis is out there, is he running like a gazelle in the same way if he's got this sort of lower back tailbone type of injury? So we'll see. In terms of what Tyler Herro looked, what happens with him, the Heat are losing a lot here. First of all, in that game 1, he had 12 points and 2 assists in 19 minutes. The Heat outscored the Bucks by 13 points in Tyler's 19 minutes. He's averaging 19 points a game against the Bucks this season. They're going to miss him as a pick and roll partner with Bam, as a quick trigger sort of shot maker coming off those screens against Milwaukee's drop coverage. Nobody has that quick release and sort of, I always say this, the chutzpah that Tyler Herro has coming off those screens to just launch, right? Like, nobody on the Heat really has that at that degree that Tyler Herro has it. And not to mention the shot making ability, not just the shot taking cojones. Like he's all those things that you need. And going against the Bucks drop coverage, where that space is going to be not for a long time, but it's going to be there for just a split second. He was the best guy, the most equipped guy on the Heat to take advantage of those.
Absolutely. Yeah, that mid-range game, we've seen him be so effective for that. The three-point accuracy is one thing, but again, there's a high variance to that. But his ability to get within that kind of soft zone between 15 and 20 feet is what makes him so dangerous and such a threat against the Milwaukee Bucks. Like, the fact that he wasn't hitting those shots, that Jimmy or Goran or anybody wasn't winning those shots a couple seasons ago when they faced these same Bucks in the playoffs, I think changed the series in Milwaukee's favor for a number of reasons. They were limiting Jimmy's drives to the rim, et cetera, but it all plays off of one another. Like, if you leave that space open, you've got Tyler or anybody able to knock down those mid-range jumpers, then Brook Lopez has to come out just a little bit further. Maybe somebody's scrambling. Maybe that leaves somebody open or beyond the arc, and that gives them a little bit more space to either drive to the rim or hit that three-point shot. So there is a cascade effect to the loss of Tyler. Yeah. And the buzz of the game 1 win, we kind of overlooked it because you're focusing on the win, and it was a joyful moment for a Heat season that hasn't had a lot of those joyful moments. But now the reality kind of sets in. You're losing a 20 points per game scorer that has the ability to be very, very dangerous and be a threat against this Bucks defense. Yeah. So, like I said, I think it's going to require everybody to step up and have just an improved overall understanding of their roles, and they have to play those to perfection in order for them to find a way to win.
I don't mean to overstate it, but I feel like this is an accurate statement. Whatever slim hopes the Heat had of making a deep playoff run, I think went out the window with this injury. I really
not necessarily.
There's just not a talented team, David. I'm just like Jimmy, Bam, and Tyler were your top 3 players. And then after that, it was like, okay.
But consider Tyler struggled in last year's playoffs, and he was injured, and Miami was still able to go in a deep run.
Last year's playoffs has nothing to do with it. And he was at least out there. Like, he had moments. I don't know. It depends on, a lot of different things in terms of this series. It depends on the health of their superstar, Giannis, and if they're able to get their defense back together and all those things. We're going to talk about who should replace Tyler Herro in the starting lineup and who we think will replace Tyler Herro in the starting lineup. Who should, who will? Are those players different? We'll see. And then we're going to get to some NBA draft news later on. But first, David, tell listeners about our sponsor.
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Game Time is the fast and easiest way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. Flash deals and last-minute tickets make sure that you can get a ticket no matter what. Let's say you're in town for something, maybe you're traveling on a vacation or even for work or something like that. And you say, you know what, I want to go catch an event while somebody's in town. Guess what? Now with Game Time, it's easy to do. And what I really like about Game Time is that it gives you the opportunity to see where your seats are. There's no more buying a ticket and then kind of hoping that it's a good spot or anything like that. Maybe you wind up being behind some speakers, or maybe you wind up being in a corner somewhere with terrible lighting. You can't really see what's going on. No, that's not the case anymore. With Game Time, you can see exactly where you're going to be sitting and what you'll be getting. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA, and you get $20 off your first purchase. Terms will apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Everydayers, you can find us Wednesday night with a recap of Game 2 immediately following the game. Who replaces Tyler Herro in the starting lineup? So the Heat came out in the second half of Game 1. Duncan Robinson started. He played just 6.5 minutes in the game, made a three-pointer, did not really play most of the second half as the Heat sort of leaned into their top 5 guys. I think you and I, we discussed this a little bit after the game, and now that we've had a little bit more time to ruminate on it, I do wonder if your opinion is... I'm going to let you go first, because I feel pretty strongly about what I think the Heat should and will do. But have you kind of changed your opinion? Do you have any more thoughts on this now that we've had a little bit more time to think about it?
It's not an easy decision because there is no perfect fill-in for that. Like what Tyler provides on offense, as we just discussed in the first segment, is not something replicated by any other member of the Heat. So you're either going to sacrifice something and then perhaps, depending on who you wind up starting, get an advantage in another area. But then again, it weakens you in terms of your overall depth and forces guys to play more minutes. If you're looking at Tyler strictly on the positives of what he brings on the offensive side, and I think that's where Miami's continuing to lean, I think you go with Duncan Robinson. I know we've said that after the game. I think that's still the right option. I think he stretches the floor, shifts Milwaukee's defense, forces people to follow him, can get people into foul trouble because of his shooting accuracy and his constant motion. But that's the thing too, though. It's no more dribble handoffs. That's going to be part of it, sure, but he can't be stagnant on offense. One of the things that Max Strus brings that Duncan doesn't is the motility. He's always in motion. He's always creating space for himself. He's always working his way around screens. Duncan has become a little bit more stagnant at this point in his career. Bring out the Ray Allen offense. Have him in constant motion. Get Grayson Allen tired. Keep him away from whoever has to be. It'll shift the defense in his favor because he's got that kind of gravity. And I think that creates open lanes for either Jimmy, Max, Bam, etc. So I think it's Duncan. So what do you think it is?
So you think it should be? Do you think it will be too? Do you think this is where Eric Spoelstra is leaning?
I don't know.
Because that's
I don't know. I you know, with Spo, we know that he tends to put somebody in there that's completely out, not necessarily of the rotation, but he doesn't want to mess with his rotations in terms.
Well, there are a couple of guys that have been completely out of the rotation, and that's Duncan Robinson and Victor Oladipo. And there are a lot of people, including Reggie Miller on the broadcast, wondering why Victor Oladipo wasn't getting those minutes.
I know, and we've talked about it too, and we've said it pretty consistently. Like we all want everybody who is a Heat fan, I think, and even around the NBA, want a Victor Oladipo success story.
Sure.
That's just not who he is. He's just not capable of functioning within the context of this particular offense and doing what he needs to do. Like he can get hot and maybe you get lucky. And look, if Duncan starts and he winds up getting into early foul trouble, which is always a possibility with him, or he misses his first 5 shots and he just loses confidence, because unfortunately we've seen that too, then you can go to Victor Oladipo and say, you know what? You're getting a balance of offense and defense that no other player really has other than Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo. And so I think it's worth exploring, but it really is in case of emergency break glass, because I think Oladipo is just too erratic and his shot is not consistent enough, and that's what you need.
This is not the Victor Oladipo series. To your point, he is way too erratic offensively. I think you need to play a certain kind of game against the Milwaukee Bucks, and that's the 3-point shooting. I think it becomes really important. I think as big of a reason for Miami winning game one as the Giannis injury was the fact that they shot 60% from 3-point range.
Yeah.
My worry in going back and watching the film is that those shots were mostly open, but I think the Bucks are going to close out better. And I don't think that this is shocking to say. I don't think the Heat are going to shoot 60% from 3-point range again, probably ever. And so, how do you make up for that? Because in order to win this series and win games in this series, you're going to have to outscore the Bucks from 3-point range because now you're creating space for Jimmy and Bam and all these things, but you're also just outscoring the Bucks. And to your point, that's what the Heat are obviously doing. They're not going to match up with Milwaukee's size, length, strength, none of that. Defensively, the Bucks are the better team, and they will be, and there's really nothing the Heat could do about that. Like, even trying hard is not going to make up for the difference in talent level defensively and size and all those things that are at play here. But you can try to outshoot them. And Victor Oladipo is not going to help you do that. Duncan Robinson's going to help you do that. And so you have a narrow path to winning this series, and it's just outscoring Milwaukee from the 3-point line. They did that with efficiency in game one, right? But they only took 25 shot attempts from 3-point range. That's not enough. That's the part that worries me. They took only 25 3-point attempts. Milwaukee took 45.
Yeah.
So just from the attempts thing, the Bucks crushed them. And you might be like, who cares about attempts? It's how many you make. And that's true. And the Heat did make 15 and the Bucks made 11. But it becomes a lot easier as you go down and not shooting 60% from 3-point range to outscore the other team from 3-point range when you're getting more attempts up than they are. So I think that that's just part of the formula that the Heat have to figure out a way to get more attempts. They have to from 3-point range. You know who helps with doing that? Duncan Robinson, because that's basically all he does. Whenever he shoots, it's 99.9% of the time, it's a 3-pointer. So whereas Victor Oladipo, who knows what he's doing? Half the time he wants to try to get into the paint, and maybe it's a kick out, maybe it's a turnover, maybe it's a weird layup. It is not surprising to me based on what we've seen from Victor Oladipo over the last 3 years. And I'm with you, man. I'm rooting for that guy. I wrote a story about him. I want it to work out, but with Miami, it's not a coincidence that his best 2 games in a Heat uniform came last year when they were resting their starters and he scored 40 points against Orlando Magic, and it was just his ball the entire time. And then this year when he scored 30 points on a Wizards team when it was basically the same situation for him where they weren't playing any other guys. So he has a hard time kind of coexisting with Miami's other starters, where Duncan Robinson is sort of a glove fit with Bam Adebayo and the DHO stuff and spacing the floor. Defensively, there's issues, but if you're already kind of punting on defense anyway, I'm not saying the Heat are punting. That is an overstatement, but you know what I mean? Like, if you're kind of deciding to lean offense, then go with your better shooter and probably the best shooter on the roster right now between Duncan Robinson and Max Strus. Like, you've got now – you got to play him. So I think what the Heat will do and what they should do is the same thing. I think they're going to go with Duncan Robinson.
Let's make a case for Oladipo. Let's spin things around a little bit. I'm trying to, even as we're having this conversation.
Give me the elevator pitch. Sure. And then there's 2 other options I want to talk about briefly, but give me the elevator pitch quickly on Vic.
He also has the mid-range capacity. We've seen him do that. Like, I think he has made he's made that conscious shift to be a little bit more active from the 3-point line. But I think even during his All-Star campaign, the mid-range game is where he was most effective. The shot just hasn't fallen with the same kind of accuracy. But there's also his speed, which has not really deviated as much as you might expect given the long injury history. And I think given Brook Lopez's lack of foot speed, Oladipo has a chance to maybe get past that initial drop coverage and get to the rim, maybe draw fouls on Giannis, Chris Middleton, Bobby Portis, whomever is out there. And maybe if he can finish at the rim, it all depends.
Well, the other part of it too is his ability to create turnovers and create those transition opportunities. So if Milwaukee's playing a little bit more in the half court and it becomes a slower game, unlike the first game where it was played at a very high pace, then maybe Victor Oladipo becomes important. The other part too is that you don't trust him to guard Giannis, or I don't really even trust him to guard Drew Holiday all that much. Like, I don't love that matchup for Vic, but I kind of like him against Chris Middleton, and that could be an option.
Yeah, when Giannis starts driving to the rim, as we've seen him do, and he gets, he's going to get stopped, or at least there's going to be the initial wall, if you will, of either Jimmy, Bam, or somebody else helping on defense there. Giannis is going to get, all of a sudden, he's going to realize, oh, okay, I can't get to the rim as easily as I normally would. I'm going to force a pass out, normally to Middleton. Well, that's where Oladipo and his defense and quick hands come in. He can either deflect the pass or even catch it, go take off and transition.
Scout that Giannis spin move that he tries to get to when a wall forms in front of him, and maybe just snatch the ball out of his hands, even though Giannis has gotten better at covering up the ball there. I think the Tyler Herro injury means that we're going to see Victor Oladipo at some point, but whether or not he starts or not, I still think that it's Duncan Robinson based on Miami's strategy in game one, but maybe they switch it up. We'll see.
It's Eric Spoelstra.
The other two options would have been Kyle Lowry or Kevin Love, but I think that the Kyle Lowry thing is probably a non-starter. I think Spo is pretty committed to bringing him off the bench. And then Kevin Love, like we said before, I don't think that you're going to beat the Bucks at their own game of sizing up. And so I don't really, and I think the Kyle Lowry, Kevin Love, Caleb Martin trio has been a strength of the Heat. And I don't think you want to lose another strength after losing a strength in the starting lineup in Tyler Herro. The other part of this too, and we'll just wrap up the Bucks, the Tyler Herro Bucks conversation here, but a lot is going to fall on Gabe Vincent. He was big in the second half, and specifically the fourth quarter after Tyler Herro got hurt in game one. As a ball handler, as a pick and roll guy with Bam Adebayo. Like when we were talking about replacing that, Duncan Robinson is not replacing any pick and roll chemistry. And that's because Duncan Robinson's, not a playmaker. Victor Oladipo, I don't think Spo trusts him to handle the ball in those situations. And I don't think that he has any reason to trust him in the first place. So Gabe Vincent, he trusts. He has him in at the end of games quite often. And he's starting them. And there is some chemistry there. And when Tyler Herro got hurt, Gabe Vincent stepped up. So I think that's going to be a big part of replacing the playmaking that you're losing with Tyler Herro. That's going to fall on Gabe Vincent, Kyle Lowry when he's in the game. And then in terms of the shooting, I think that's going to be Duncan Robinson. And then I do think that we'll get a Victor Oladipo wild card here and there.
Bigger X factor, Gabe Vincent or Kevin Love moving forward?
I think it's Gabe Vincent. I think he really he's the guy that can kind of replace some of that shot making. He's a willing shooter from mid range. Like he's very willing to pull up from mid range. I think he has to have the green light going forward. I think there's a lot on Gabe Vincent, and I kind of wish we talked about him earlier because I do feel like he's a big story going forward for the Heat.
We could talk about it in the last segment too. We can always push our conversation a little bit because I think it's Kevin. I think.
All right, hold it. Let's do that on the other side of the break. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Kevin Love maybe as an X factor. Draymond Green was his stomp dirty. We're going to debate that next. We've got some NBA draft news. We're going to get to all of it on the other side. But first, David, tell listeners about our sponsor.
Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, daily fantasy made easy. And easy is exactly what it is. You don't have to worry about going up against anybody else or whether or not somebody might outbid you or anything like that. With the entries that you make on PrizePicks, it's so easy. Just pick 2 to 6 players, and if they score more or less than their PrizePicks projections, you win. That's it. You can win up to 25 times your money on any entries. No competing against other people, just you versus the numbers. And PrizePicks offer projections on any sports that you watch, including the NBA, the NFL, Major League Baseball, men's and women's college sports, Euro basketball, disc golf, you name it, they've got it. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. Safe and fast withdrawal, so you get your money quickly. Currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. So download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. And first-time users get a 100% instant deposit match of up to $100 if you use the promo code LOCKEDON. So if you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. But you can't do any of that without entering the promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for that instant deposit match of up to $100 by downloading the PrizePicks app or going to prizepicks.com today.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Everydayers will find us Wednesday night with a recap of Game 2 immediately following the game. You can reach out to us, Twitter, Instagram, email us, lockedonheat@gmail.com. You thought Kevin Love was the X. Let's do this. We got 3 topics that we want to hit. Let's try to do 3 topics in 6 minutes. So 2 minutes a topic. Speed round for the third segment. Let's do it, David. Kevin Love is your X factor?
Yeah, I think so. I like what Eric Spoelstra said after the Game 1 win, where Kevin understands the moment because he's been in these situations before and he stepped up his game. And you've seen with Miami's lack of front court depth, they need somebody to step up. Kevin can do a pretty good job defensively just because Brook Lopez isn't that mobile. You don't have to worry about him. He's not going to have to cover Bobby Portis that much, but at least he's a bigger body that pulls down rebounds, keeps Portis from getting those second chance opportunities. And I think if he can continue to stretch the floor, and again, that's another big if, but we talked about whether or not Miami can lean offensively, and if they could just hit enough 3-point shots to make things easier for themselves and put Milwaukee at a disadvantage, that's the edge that Miami can hope to get. I think if the starting lineup with Gabe, you've got Bam, you've got Jimmy. Hopefully, Bam continues to build off that game one stretch that he had in the second half. And if he does, then I think Gabe's offense is not necessarily as important. It's great to have, but it's not as vital, I think, as Kevin's three-point shooting ability, because we saw those buckets he was getting so impactful in that game one win.
Yeah.
I think he's the bigger X factor.
Those shots are open, man. They did not defend him at all from beyond the 3-point line, and that's sort of Milwaukee's strategy. Look, I'm not gonna say who's the bigger X factor. I just think against a more talented Milwaukee Bucks team, all these guys have to kind of play out of their mind this entire series. So those shots are going to be there for Kevin Love. The spacing when is like you said, extremely important, especially if he's going to play a lot of minutes next to Jimmy Butler like he did in game one and kind of has in this new rotation pattern that Spo has whipped up. So it's all going to be big. It's all going to be big. All right. So the Heat, Warriors, and Clippers had the same record at the end of the regular season. So the NBA held a coin flip on Monday to determine their draft order. The Heat won that coin flip, so they got that going for them. They got the number 18 pick. And then the Warriors will fall to 19. The Clippers fall to 20. Every little bit matters, David, especially this offseason that we know is going to be pretty pivotal for the franchise. I went back. The 18th pick, not a bad pick. Last 5 drafts, here's who they took at 18. Right. Dalen Terry, who I think Chicago raw, but I like him a lot. And Chicago likes him. Trey Mann, good backup point guard for OKC. I think that's a solid player. Josh Green, who might be Dallas's best perimeter defender. Like, of all the bad things that have happened to the Mavericks this year and disappointing things that have happened to Dallas this year, Josh Green is sort of the silver lining there. Goga Patazde, not great. And then Lonnie Walker IV, who was pretty impactful with the Lakers before he was basically out of the rotation. But like, mixed results, but like but not bad, right? You're not getting a future star, but I think you can get a role player there at number 18. So ESPN, The Ringer, Tankathon, they all have Ryan Rupert from the New Zealand Breakers going number 18, a 6'6" wing with a 7'3" wingspan. The Ringer comparing him to Mikal Bridges, lockdown defender. I read that he's got some dog in him. He's got some dog, David. Kind of like that.
Your dogs. You like your dogs in Miami, but they just rarely go the international route. But you know what?
You talking about
this Jovic kid? Yeah, I'm sorry. It's like, who knows?
They exclusively go the international route, given a small sample size of 1 year,
of one season. Yeah, their second international draft pick throughout the whole franchise history. So I guess that's something.
Ryan, if you weren't sold on the little dog, 7'3" wingspan. I'm not sure I said that already. And Ryan spelled Rayan.
Nope.
Raya. No, you what?
Get that bum out of here. Sorry. I don't know what that is.
Spelled it wrong?
Yeah, for sure. Come on. We like our Ryans,
That's how they spell it. Ryan.
Right. Go look at the ABL then. I'm sorry. It's not going to work out here in the NBA.
I'm a Ryan Rupert guy. We'll do our blue notebooks later on in the summer. So you and I stayed up late to watch Kings Warriors because I'm going to. Fun game. Kings are up 2-0 in the series. You talked about it on today's Locked On NBA with Matt Moore, so people should go check that out and subscribe to Locked On NBA. But the story around the league right now is Draymond Green stomping on the chest of Domantas Sabonis after Sabonis grabbed Draymond's leg while Sabonis was laying on the ground. If you haven't seen the highlight, it's out there. Did you think it was dirty? Did you think that Draymond should have been ejected with the flagrant 2 that he got?
I don't think it was dirty. I do think he should have been ejected, and I don't think he'll get suspended moving forward either. So I think that's the debate points right there in a nutshell. I think, look, the Sabonis, they had been going back and forth, and there was that one play that was a rescinded foul where Draymond was kind of falling out of bounds, and he bumps Sabonis, who is a flopper, and like he sells that contact 100%. Like there is no way around that. Like we also even saw that. And I love the Adrian Wojnarowski tweet saying, "Oh, X-rays on his chest," like he had like a size 14 imprint somewhere.
And then Draymond also requesting X-rays on his ankle.
Yeah, good times. You know what? So I think
petty X-ray.
He was. Yeah. Sabonis was.
What a waste of hospital funds, man! Like, what kind of insurance do these guys have? Whatever. Keep going.
Yeah, sorry. I think Joe Lacob could afford it, right? Anyway, I think they he was selling the contact in the hopes of getting Draymond ejected, and
Yes.
it worked. But
Yes.
then we saw
He
him
sold it.
dunking and rebounding and hitting
He
free
did miss.
throws.
He did miss 2 free throws right after that. He short-breaded one, and I did think, I was like, because he obviously sold that contact. Come on, and like the
Sure.
photos going around with him screaming in agony. Like, I do think there was a level of surprise and shock, and maybe you
You don't get
react in
stepped
that
on
way.
often. Sure.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And so I buy the initial reaction, but then the selling of the contact, like he was trying out for the Oscars, or like, he was an extra in Saving Private Ryan. That was crazy, And so but then he missed the 2 free throws, and I was like, maybe he is actually injured, because you could see how, getting hit in the chest area would cause you to miss a free throw short, which is specifically how he did. And then the report coming out that he's going to go to X-rays. I was like, oh, did he actually fracture a rib? And and then everybody was going to feel bad for making fun of him if he actually did fracture his rib. We haven't really gotten anything definitive on whether or not his ribs are okay, or if,
No, yeah, it's clear. All clear.
Oh, it is clear. Okay.
Yeah,
So
no breaks.
I thought I mostly agree with you. I did think it was dirty by Draymond. None of what happened was a basketball play, but you also see that ankle grab a lot more in basketball games than you do a guy stomping on somebody else's chest. Like, that was reactionary by Draymond. Draymond always complains that he never gets the benefit of the doubt. Well, guess what, dude? You've made a career of tackling dudes and kicking guys and doing plays just like this. You lost the benefit of the doubt 5 years ago. And I say that as somebody that covered Draymond and liked and very much enjoyed covering Draymond Green. But there was no sort of finessing around it. Like, he had lost the benefit of the doubt quite a while ago. And I don't give it to him here. I don't. Like, I thought it was dirty. I really do. And him saying, like, I'm not that flexible, and that was the only way for me to land, was like no, dude.
I could see that too.
Stomp on that. No,
I could see that.
I could see it, but not in that instance.
He had his foot on there. Draymond was trying to walk over Sabonis, and when he couldn't pull his foot on, he's like, "Whoa, I've got to pull it out, and the only place for me to land is on your chest." Again, purposeful,
I guess,
but I don't think he was like it. There was no premeditation to it, and that's where I think
it was reactionary. It was. Right. I mean, I don't think he was predetermined to stomp on Sabonis' chest. Like, I hope he grabs my ankle so I can stomp on his chest. I think like it happened so quick. Like, there is no premeditation. There's no chance for premeditation. I think he got PO'd. He, like he said in the post-game press conference too, like, it happened the last game. I think he said Malik Monk had grabbed his ankle, and he was getting upset with it being not called, and so he reacted. And look, we've seen this again from Draymond. Like, he doesn't think things through sometimes, right? He just reacts in a very aggressive sort of way. Yeah. And quite frankly, I thought it was dirty in the past and things that he's done like this, and I thought that was a dirty play. Now, whether or not you think Sabonis deserved it, that's up to you, man. Like, I don't care, but I've actually been pretty surprised that anybody thinks that he should have stayed in the game. Like, that is a pretty, like, you can have an issue with the rule itself, but that is cut and dry against the rules. That was, it was excessive. Yeah. It was unnecessary. And it was unnecessary and then excessive. And so unnecessary deems it a flagrant 1. And then the excessive part of it makes it a flagrant 2. And I don't think that you can watch that and say that was not unnecessary and that was not excessive. Like, that's cut and dry. Flagrant 2, you're ejected from the game. But whether or not you think Sabonis deserved it is, I guess, a separate question. You're like, yeah, maybe he deserved it a little bit.
No, I don't think he deserved it. I don't think he deserved it at all. I think I think he instigated it too. And I think Draymond was kind of left with a choice.
And he got the technical.
He chose to stomp on him. And it's like, you know what? It's over.
I feel like the refs have actually handled that perfectly. I have no notes on how the referees treated that whole incident. You gave Sabonis the technical that he deserved because he instigated it. You're absolutely right. But he ultimately did not almost crush the ribs of another basketball player. And so Draymond gets Draymond or whatever.
So overstated. Like,
but Draymond deserved the greater penalty, no?
Like, we're talking about charges, and that's the theme of the last couple of days. And you see people like flopping all over the place. Like, hey, you know what, man? I grew up watching different era of basketball. And I know that we're protecting our players, and I'm all for that because I actually talk to these players and I actually get to enjoy talking to them and seeing them as human beings. And at the same time, we're just all a little soft about this. Like, dude, that guy wasn't getting his ribs crushed by Draymond. Like, he's 260 pounds. He's a 7-foot guy. Like, he hopped on him. It's like, big deal. Get the hell out of here with that. I was just like watching it and I was laughing to myself. It's like, because he's writhing on the floor. in this incredible pain. It's like, all right. And the Oscar goes to Domantas Sabonis for getting stop time.
I just don't think you could go full Dance Dance Revolution on a dude's chest. Like, I don't think that's all right.
I mean, I don't know.
I don't think you could do it. All right, whatever. I thought they handled it. Did you think the officials handled it correctly though? You did. Okay,
it was fine.
So
but I also said I
officials.
made
Shout
this
out
point
to
on
them.
Locked On NBA. You know, like Draymond is so polarizing. Like he could rescue a baby from a bird. Yeah, he didn't. He thinks it was excessive, but neither of us thought he was going to get suspended. And I said he could rescue a baby from a burning building, and people would still find fault with it because it's Draymond. And I saw that in like the comments.
If he stomps on the baby's chest, that'll be an issue.
No. It would be like he went out the wrong door, or he didn't grab his pacifier when he was grabbing the baby out, or maybe he was holding the baby a little too tight. It's like that's the whole thing. It's like Draymond is Draymond, and people are pissed off by it. And you and I happen to enjoy Draymond, and at the same time, we can be unbiased enough to say he shouldn't have done it. It was excessive, but it was also kind of overblown too. It's over as far as I'm concerned.
You know what Draymond has?
What?
A little bit of dog in him. Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Remember to subscribe to new episodes of Locked On Heat on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube every day, or find us Wednesday night with a recap of Game 2 immediately following the game. David, thanks for joining me.
You got it, Wes.
You are